Captain Aidan Cole's ship descended through Elisara's atmosphere with the soft hum of ion thrusters vibrating beneath the hull. From his viewport, he could see forests of iridescent trees stretching like oceans, rivers reflecting colors no human name could describe, and cities of spires that gleamed like gemstones in the fading sunlight. The planet was beautiful, almost impossibly so, and as he landed in the grand palace courtyard, Aidan couldn't help but feel a mixture of awe and apprehension. He stepped onto the polished surface, his boots making a faint echo in the vast hall that opened before him. The architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls shimmered subtly, as if alive, adorned with carvings that seemed to move when the light touched them. The air smelled sweet, faintly floral, and yet invigorating, like walking through a spring that had no season. Aidan adjusted the collar of his diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. "Captain Cole," a voice said, smooth and calm. He turned to see a being approaching, tall and elegant, with pale, translucent skin that shimmered faintly in the light, and eyes that reflected the entire color spectrum. The being bowed slightly. "I am Ambassador Rilsera," the figure said, her voice melodic yet precise. "Queen Lysera has been expecting you." "Thank you, Ambassador. It is an honor to meet the Queen of Elisara." He had trained for months for this mission, establishing humanity's first trade and cultural exchange agreement with an alien civilization. Yet, even with all his training, nothing had prepared him for the reality of walking through the heart of a living palace that felt more like an artwork than a building. Finally, they arrived at the throne room. It was immense, domed and filled with soft golden light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. At the far end, seated upon a throne of light and crystal, was Queen Lysera. Her presence was commanding, not in a way that intimidated, but in a way that made one feel the weight of her wisdom and authority. She rose as Aidan entered, her movement graceful, almost gliding rather than walking. "Captain Cole," she said, her voice deep and resonant, carrying through the hall without needing to raise itself. "Welcome to Elisara. We are honored to receive a human of your skill and reputation. I come representing Earth, hoping to strengthen understanding between our peoples." He shifted slightly, feeling the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down on him, not in a threatening way, but in the quiet certainty that here, orders were law, and law was absolute. Then came the moment that would change the course of his mission in ways he could never have predicted. "Captain," Queen Lysera said, her voice softening but carrying an undeniable firmness, "I have a matter of great importance to discuss with you. It is unusual but necessary for the good of our worlds." She paused, her eyes never leaving his. "You will marry my daughter." "Marry my daughter, human. My purpose is negotiation, trade, cultural exchange, not marriage. I am not of your people." The words "there is no escape" began to echo in his mind, though he did not yet fully understand their meaning. I see," he said slowly. "And your daughter, Princess Vera, she consents to this arrangement. The union is for trust, not mere ceremony. You must adapt to our customs. There is no avoidance, Captain, none." "Then I will do my best, Your Majesty. I will honor your traditions and seek to understand them fully. This is the beginning of something important." If he could navigate this, if he could adapt to their world while remaining human, perhaps this challenge was not only survivable, it could become a bridge between civilizations. That night, he wandered the palace halls alone, marveling at the gardens that glowed faintly under the moonlight, with plants that emitted soft pulses of light and flowers that shifted color in response to the air. Streams of liquid light flowed gently along paths, creating patterns that seemed alive, and bridges arched over them in ways that defied human engineering. Aidan realized that everything on Elisara functioned with harmony and intention. Even the smallest detail seemed part of a larger, intelligent design. As he walked, he thought about Princess Vera. The Queen's words had been absolute, but she had not described her daughter's personality, her strengths, or her thoughts. All he knew was that Vera was central to this order, and he would have to understand her world as much as she would need to understand his. Sleep did not come easily that night. Aidan's thoughts were alive with plans, questions, and possibilities. How did humans fit into this alien culture? Could he maintain his identity while respecting theirs? How would Vera react to a human forced into her life in this way? And most importantly, could he turn this unimaginable mandate into a partnership rather than a trap? When dawn came, the palace was bathed in a soft, golden glow. Aidan prepared himself for the audience with Princess Vera, reviewing what he knew of human and Elisaran etiquette, practicing calm tones, and reminding himself to remain adaptable. As he approached the audience chamber, he was greeted by Ambassador Rilsera, whose expression betrayed a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Captain," she said, "remember, Vera is clever, curious, and independent. Approach her as a partner, not a subject. Show her your mind, your humor, and your humanity. That is what she values most." Her eyes were the same spectrum-shifting hue as her mother's, but there was a spark of curiosity and mischief in them that Aiden did not expect. "Captain Cole," she said, her voice calm, melodic, yet tinged with amusement. "So you are the human my mother has ordered to marry me. I must admit, you look different from what I imagined. And you, Princess, look far more intelligent and formidable than I expected. I am honored to meet you." Two civilizations, one human, one Elisaran, finding a way to understand each other one step at a time. As they spoke, laughter mingled with curiosity, and the chamber seemed less like a court of command and more like a meeting of minds. The first challenge of this impossible order had begun, and Captain Aiden Cole, human, diplomat, and now reluctant fiancé, was ready to face it. For on Elisara there was indeed no escape, but perhaps, with cleverness, empathy, and human ingenuity, there was an opportunity to thrive where none had thought possible. The following morning, Captain Aiden Cole awoke with a sense of both anticipation and unease. His first private audience with Princess Vera was approaching, and though he had spent the night rehearsing phrases and protocols, he knew that no amount of preparation could truly predict the nuances of interacting with a being from a civilization so unlike his own. He dressed carefully, ensuring his uniform was spotless, each crease perfect. Humans were a species of habit and precision, and even in the midst of alien grandeur, Aiden's discipline provided a small anchor of familiarity. He reminded himself that he would need to balance respect for Elisaran tradition with the candidness of human sincerity, a combination that could either impress or insult, depending on delivery. As he entered the audience chamber, he found Princess Vera waiting with an almost imperceptible smile. She sat cross-legged on a cushion that seemed to float slightly above the floor, a faint glow outlining her form. The room was smaller than the Queen's throne chamber, but no less impressive. Walls shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting soft patterns that shifted with each movement. Light seemed to dance across every surface, yet the effect was not overwhelming. It felt alive, observant, almost conversational. "Captain Cole," Vera said, her voice calm yet carrying a subtle playfulness, "I hear you are the human my mother has commanded me to marry. Tell me, are humans always so obedient? Your people have a certain directness. It is unlike the subtlety we are accustomed to. It may serve you well here, or it may cause problems. You must learn to read more than words, Captain. The space between actions often speaks louder than the actions themselves." Vera guided him through customs, explaining the importance of gestures, colors, and patterns in communication. A simple bow could signify respect, submission, or neutrality, depending on subtle shifts of hand, wrist, and finger placement. The color of one's clothing could imply honesty, caution, or curiosity. Even walking in a particular pattern through a room could communicate intentions. Aiden's human mind, trained to focus on words and explicit meanings, struggled at first. But gradually, he began to see patterns. He noticed that the shimmer of her aura changed when she considered his words carefully, the way her posture shifted slightly when he demonstrated understanding, and the delicate balance of light and shadow across the chamber as subtle cues of her mood. "You humans are resilient," Vera said at one point, a hint of admiration in her voice. "Your species can adapt quickly to new environments. I see why my mother believes this union could benefit Elisara. I am learning that the most important part of any culture is understanding its values, not just its rules." That can be enlightening. He had been trained in diplomacy, not horticulture or artistic symbolism. Yet, as he engaged with each task, he realized that these were tests of observation, creativity, and problem-solving, carefully constructed to measure his compatibility with Elisaran thought and tradition. When arranging the garden, for example, Aiden applied human logic to the patterns of plant growth and water flow, creating designs that were not only aesthetically pleasing but also efficient and sustainable. Vera watched silently, then smiled. "You think differently? Not in the way we would, but perhaps more clearly, more directly." "That is useful." Aiden laughed quietly as he experimented, often making mistakes that drew gentle amusement from Vera rather than scorn. "You humans enjoy simplicity," she noted once, observing him struggle to combine flavors in a traditional dish. "Yet, simplicity can carry depth if used wisely. Perhaps your people will teach us that." Slowly, they began to develop mutual respect, understanding that their differences were not barriers but tools for learning. Despite the progress, Aiden remained aware of the Queen's unyielding decree. At any moment, he could be reminded that this union was not entirely optional. He had to maintain vigilance, respecting Elisaran law while exploring opportunities for genuine connection. This awareness kept him cautious, yet it also sharpened his focus. He realized that his success here depended not only on skill, but also on his ability to think creatively and adapt continually. One afternoon, as they walked through the palace's floating corridors, Vera stopped to observe a wall of living light, patterns shifting like stars in motion. "Do you ever feel constrained by your culture, Captain Cole?" she asked softly. "Humans are clever, but sometimes the rules you create around yourselves, they hold you back. That balance, that is where humans excel." Suitability in this context was not just about survival or diplomacy. It was about demonstrating that a human could integrate, respect, and contribute meaningfully to a society so different from Earth. Days turned into a week, and the palace routine settled into a rhythm. Aiden's confidence grew as he applied human problem-solving to small challenges presented by Vera. He repaired malfunctioning systems in the palace gardens using simple mechanical logic. He proposed new methods for organizing ceremonial displays, blending human practicality with Elisaran aesthetics. With each success, Vera's admiration became more evident, subtle but unmistakable. Yet Aiden also encountered moments of cultural misstep, moments that reminded him of the delicate line he walked. Once he gestured in a way that, in Elisaran tradition, implied impatience. Vera's expression faltered for a moment, then recovered. He learned quickly, observing the shifts in light around her and adjusting his behavior. These small lessons reinforced the importance of adaptability and observation, two skills humans often relied upon instinctively. Late one evening, as they walked together along a balcony overlooking the palace gardens, Vera spoke quietly. "Captain, I wonder, do humans ever feel powerless when confronted with rules they cannot change? But we find ways to influence, to persuade, to create options where none seem to exist. It is not defiance, it is ingenuity. We respect rules, but we also respect possibilities. You find paths hidden to those who only see boundaries." As the sun set over the palace, casting the gardens in waves of gold and silver light, Aiden felt a rare sense of calm. The uncertainty remained, the pressures of alien law were ever present, but he also sensed possibility. He had begun to understand the subtle language of Elisara, and he had begun to earn the trust of Princess Vera. This union, forced though it may be by decree, was becoming less about obligation and more about shared respect, curiosity, and discovery. Aiden knew that challenges would grow more complex, but he also knew that humans had a unique gift for adapting, learning, and finding creative solutions. On Elisara, where there was no escape, that gift might be the most valuable of all. For the first time since his arrival, Captain Aiden Cole did not feel trapped. He felt engaged, alert, and perhaps most importantly, ready. The journey ahead would test his mind, his patience, and his humanity, but it would also reveal the power of those very qualities. And as the palace lights shimmered and shifted around him, he understood one fundamental truth. Humans were capable of thriving in the most alien of worlds, not by force, but by thought, observation, and heart. And in this realization, he discovered the first spark of hope, for both himself and for the fragile bridge between Earth and Elisara that he had been sent to build. The morning sun spilled golden light across the floating terraces of the palace, casting long, shimmering shadows over the gardens below. Captain Aiden Cole stood at the edge of one terrace, surveying the view with a careful calm. Today was no ordinary day. Queen Lysera had summoned him to participate in a series of trials, a demonstration of skill, intelligence, and ingenuity designed to test his suitability for life among the Elisarans, and more pointedly, for the bond decreed by her command. Aiden had spent the past week learning the subtle ways of the palace, observing Princess Vera, and mastering the nuances of Elisaran culture. Yet, he knew that this trial would challenge not just his ability to adapt, but his ability to think in ways alien to human logic while applying uniquely human strengths. The first trial began in the palace's Hall of Patterns, a massive chamber where light and shadow wove together like living tapestries. Here, the Queen explained, participants were to solve a series of structural and symbolic puzzles. These puzzles were not brute tests of knowledge, but demonstrations of observation, insight, and creativity. Vera joined him, her presence calm yet commanding. "Captain Cole," she said, "these tests are designed not to intimidate but to reveal. How you perceive, how you interpret, how you create, these are the measures of worth in our culture." He stepped forward, examining the first puzzle, a series of floating geometric panels, each inscribed with alien symbols that shifted and changed depending on the angle of light. The panels appeared chaotic, yet he sensed a hidden order. He moved slowly, studying the patterns, noting symmetry, recurring shapes, and the way light refracted through each panel. Drawing on human intuition, he began arranging the panels according to logical sequences, aligning shapes and colors to maximize both balance and coherence. It was not the Elisaran method, but it worked. The panels began to glow steadily, signaling successful completion. Vera's eyes gleamed with quiet admiration. "Interesting," she murmured. "You approach problems differently yet effectively." "That is rare." Using nothing but careful manipulation of small floating devices and subtle adjustments, he redirected the streams without breaking any natural flow. The plants responded instantly, glowing brighter as the water nourished them. "This task tests patience and foresight," Vera said. "Many see only immediate results. Few consider long-term consequences. You think ahead." "That is valuable." Then he did something unexpected. He suggested a solution that combined the preferences of both factions while introducing a new arrangement, a pattern inspired by human art and logic. Initially, the factions looked at him in surprise, but as he explained his reasoning, their expressions softened. The arrangement was both pleasing and fair, blending tradition with innovation. Vera clapped her hands softly. "Clever," she said. "You respect the past but are not bound by it. That is why humans are fascinating." While he occasionally faltered, his willingness to adapt and his quick learning impressed the Elisaran observers more than perfection ever could. After completing the third trial, Aiden was led to a chamber where Vera awaited with a smile. "There is one final challenge," she said, her eyes gleaming. "It is not a puzzle or a task. It is a reflection. Tell me what you see when you observe Elisara and its people. Convince me that you understand our world and can contribute meaningfully to it." He recalled the lessons he had learned in the past week, the importance of observation, the value of empathy, and the power of human creativity. He spoke slowly, carefully, choosing words that would convey both respect and insight. "Elisara is a world of harmony and intention. Every element from the smallest plant to the largest building is designed with purpose. Your people communicate not just through words, but through gestures, colors, and light. It is a culture of balance, wisdom, and subtlety. But I see opportunity as well. Humans bring a perspective that is direct, inventive, and empathetic. We ask questions, observe closely, and create solutions that may not be obvious within tradition. If you allow us to contribute, we can blend our strengths with yours, enhancing understanding, efficiency, and creativity. Together, we could achieve something neither civilization could accomplish alone. It is not enough to follow rules or mimic tradition. True understanding requires insight, courage, and the ability to innovate without disrespecting the past. You possess these qualities." He realized that the Queen's command, though strict, had created an opportunity for him to show the unique value of his species in ways that went far beyond diplomacy. But the trials were not yet complete. The Queen herself entered the chamber, her presence radiating authority and quiet power. She observed the results of the trials, noting Aiden's achievements and Vera's reactions. "You have performed admirably, Captain Cole," she said. "Your actions demonstrate not only skill but understanding. You have adapted without losing your essence. This is why humans intrigue us. Your people bring qualities that complement our own, qualities that may help Elisara evolve without abandoning its traditions. I have learned much and hope to continue learning, both from you and from Princess Vera. A human who can navigate our society in such a way is rare, and perhaps exceptional. You must continue to understand our world, our people, and yourself in relation to us. Only then can you truly belong here." In other words, he was demonstrating humanity at its best. Intelligence, empathy, and creativity applied with purpose. Over the following days, he and Vera began collaborating on small projects within the palace, blending human and Elisaran methods. They designed symbolic art pieces together, combining geometric precision with intuitive flow. They reorganized sections of the floating gardens, enhancing both beauty and sustainability. In each task, Aiden applied his human reasoning, while Vera guided him with insight into Elisaran aesthetics and cultural significance. During one quiet moment, as they watched the shifting colors of the palace lights reflecting on the garden's water streams, Vera spoke softly. "Captain, I admit I was skeptical at first. Humans are so direct, so unpredictable. I wondered if one could truly adapt here. But you navigate our world without breaking it. You honor it while contributing something new. That is rare. But I have learned that observation, patience, and a willingness to adapt can open doors that seem impossible. Humans survive because we persist, learn, and innovate. That is all I have done here, and it seems it has been enough." The trials had proven that Aiden could navigate the complex and subtle world of Elisara. But there were still challenges ahead: political intrigue, cultural misunderstandings, and the ongoing reality of a command that left him little choice but to participate in a union with a princess from another world. Yet for the first time, he felt capable, prepared, and respected. And he knew one essential truth: humans could thrive even in environments that seemed alien, even when bound by rigid traditions, as long as they relied on intelligence, empathy, and creativity. In fact, these very qualities could turn a command into an opportunity, a trial into a triumph. As the palace lights dimmed and the floating terraces glimmered under the evening sky, Aiden felt a quiet sense of purpose. He had survived the first round of trials, impressed the princess, and shown the court the value of human ingenuity. But more importantly, he had shown himself that even in a world of rules that left no room for escape, humans could create space for understanding, connection, and progress. The Queen's trials had been demanding, but they had also been revealing. Aiden realized that this was not a test to punish or trap him, but an invitation to demonstrate the best of his species. And as he walked alongside Vera, watching her gentle movements and thoughtful gaze, he understood that the greatest challenge and the greatest reward would not be in completing tasks, but in building a bridge between two worlds. It was a challenge he was ready to meet. The palace had settled into a rhythm, but for Captain Aiden Cole, each day brought new challenges. The first trials had tested his intelligence, creativity, and observation, yet he knew the most complex challenges were still ahead. The human mind could adapt, but the intricacies of Elisaran court life were deeper than any puzzle or structured test. Princess Vera had begun to involve him in more subtle aspects of palace affairs. She invited him to witness councils and discussions that, on the surface, seemed ceremonial, but were often laden with underlying tension. Different factions within the palace had their own interests, some welcoming human involvement, others wary or even suspicious. One afternoon, as they walked along a balcony overlooking the central gardens, Vera spoke quietly. "Captain, there are those in the court who do not trust your presence. Some fear that humans will disrupt our traditions. Others see opportunity to exploit your unfamiliarity with our ways. You must be careful." These were not merely challenges of skill. They were tests of diplomacy and perception. One misstep could be interpreted as insolence or ignorance, damaging not only his standing but the fragile bond between humans and Elisara. Over the next few days, he observed court interactions closely. He noticed subtle shifts in light, minute gestures and the tone of voices that carried unspoken meaning. By analyzing these cues, he began to predict potential conflicts and find ways to mediate without overstepping boundaries. One particular incident highlighted the complexity of the palace. Two factions of Elisaran scholars disagreed on the placement of ceremonial light orbs for an upcoming festival. The disagreement was escalating, and Vera turned to Aiden for advice. "Captain Cole," she said, "your perspective may help. You see patterns differently. Offer a solution that balances tradition with innovation, and perhaps we can resolve this quietly." Then he proposed a compromise, a new arrangement that honored the intent of both factions while introducing subtle innovations that improved the symmetry and flow of the display. The factions were initially hesitant, but as he explained his reasoning and demonstrated how the new design respected their core values, they gradually nodded in agreement. Vera watched, her expression softening. "You do not impose, Captain," she said quietly. You guide. That is why humans are remarkable. You adapt without threatening the balance. The human approach to problem solving, logical and direct, allowed Aiden to quickly identify the source of the problem and propose a simple, effective solution using basic mechanical principles. The Elisarans marveled at his ingenuity, a human skill that combined observation, logic, and practical action. Vera smiled at him. You solve problems in ways we would not have considered. It is refreshing and inspiring. Others praised his insight while quietly warning Vera of his influence, questioning whether humans could ever truly belong in the court. Aiden approached these moments with patience and humor, demonstrating humility and curiosity rather than defensiveness. His willingness to learn, combined with the human trait of resilient optimism, earned him allies quietly but effectively. One evening, as they studied the palace archives, Vera spoke of a deeper concern. Captain, there are those who wish to manipulate my mother's decree for their own gain. They see humans as pawns, not partners. If we are not careful, they could create distrust or division. Then we must anticipate their actions, understand their motivations, and address concerns before they escalate. Humans excel at finding solutions where others see only obstacles. Perhaps we can turn their schemes into opportunities to demonstrate transparency and collaboration. Perhaps that is why you have earned some respect here, even from those wary of your presence. Aiden proposed adjustments to ceremonial schedules that minimized tension, suggested ways to address miscommunications diplomatically, and introduced small innovations in organization that improved efficiency without threatening tradition. Each action was designed to strengthen trust, demonstrating the human ability to adapt, innovate, and collaborate peacefully. Their partnership deepened as they worked together. Vera began sharing personal stories about her upbringing, the expectations placed on her, and the complexities of being a princess in a society where tradition was paramount. Aiden shared human perspectives on leadership, responsibility, and the value of empathy. Through these conversations, a foundation of mutual respect and understanding grew. Yet, they were not without moments of tension. Aiden occasionally misinterpreted subtle gestures, leading to minor misunderstandings. Each time, he used honest communication and observation to correct course, learning from every error. The process was slow, but it reinforced the human qualities of patience, adaptability, and persistence. One particularly delicate situation involved a ceremonial debate in which one faction subtly questioned the queen's judgment. Aiden suggested a solution that acknowledged the faction's concerns while reinforcing the queen's authority, carefully balancing respect, clarity, and innovation. The debate concluded peacefully, leaving the court impressed with his subtle diplomacy. Vera observed him with quiet admiration. Captain Cole, humans can be bold yet gentle. You navigate these challenges without force, without overstepping. That is rare. You show that influence can be gained through understanding, not coercion. It seems survival and success are not just about skill or intelligence, but about listening, observing, and finding solutions that honor both sides. Humans have learned that through experience. Observers noted how a human could work seamlessly with an Elisaran princess, contributing new ideas while respecting tradition. Slowly, skepticism turned into cautious approval. Even the queen observed with interest. She had decreed the union to strengthen trust between species, but she also watched to see whether humans could truly integrate without disrupting Elisaran culture. Aiden's consistent demonstration of intelligence, empathy, and creativity offered compelling evidence that humans could indeed bring value without violating tradition. One evening, as they walked along the palace's reflective terraces, Vera spoke softly. Captain, I am beginning to understand why my mother insisted on this union. It is not simply about obedience or tradition. It is about potential, the potential of humans to offer perspectives we might never consider, to challenge us in ways that improve, not harm, our society. I see now that the decree, though strict, is also an opportunity to build bridges. Aiden's ability to mediate disputes, solve technical problems, and introduce subtle innovations earned him recognition. Even those initially skeptical began to acknowledge that humans brought something unique: clarity, creativity, and a willingness to learn. A particularly impressive moment came when a minor festival's preparations ran into complications. Aiden suggested reorganizing the ceremony's sequence in a way that preserved symbolism while improving flow. The suggestion was met with initial hesitation, but as the ceremony unfolded flawlessly, the court recognized his contribution. Vera looked at him with genuine admiration. "Captain Cole, you continue to impress. Your methods are unconventional, yet effective. You demonstrate that intelligence combined with empathy can overcome challenges that might seem insurmountable." Even as the palace welcomed their achievements, the underlying reality of the Queen's decree remained. This union, though increasingly respected, was still mandatory. Yet, through collaboration, understanding, and ingenuity, Aiden had begun to shape the situation into a true partnership rather than a simple obligation. And as he walked beside Vera, observing the palace in its quiet evening glow, he realized that humans, when guided by intelligence and empathy, could thrive in even the most alien and structured environments. This understanding was more than survival. It was humanity at its finest. The ability to integrate, contribute, and inspire without violating the principles of others. For the first time, Captain Aiden Cole felt not only capable but empowered. He had faced court intrigue, subtle opposition, and cultural complexity, and emerged with trust, respect, and growing influence. And he understood that the greatest challenges and the greatest opportunities were still ahead. The palace, with its floating terraces, shimmering lights, and living gardens, had become a place of learning, collaboration, and mutual respect. And within it, Aiden had begun to leave a mark, not through force, but through intelligence, empathy, and ingenuity. The stage was set for the next phase of his journey, solidifying trust, strengthening bonds, and preparing for challenges that would test not just his mind, but his heart and character. In the heart of Elisara, where tradition and innovation intertwined, a human was proving that he belonged, not by breaking rules, but by understanding them, respecting them, and using human ingenuity to enhance the world around him. And that, he realized, was the essence of HFY, humanity's ability to shine not through power or dominance, but through thought, creativity, and connection. The palace was alive with energy as preparations for the ceremonial celebration reached their peak. Captain Aiden Cole walked alongside Princess Vera through the floating corridors, their steps light on the smooth, glowing surfaces. The day marked not only the formal recognition of his bond with Vera, but also the culmination of weeks of trials, challenges, and subtle diplomacy. Every corner of the palace shimmered in anticipation, reflecting the union of human ingenuity and Elisaran tradition. Aiden had spent the past weeks demonstrating that humans could navigate alien culture with respect and creativity. He had solved problems without force, mediated disputes, and introduced subtle innovations that enhanced the palace's beauty and efficiency. Every success had strengthened the trust of the court, and even those initially skeptical began to see humans not as intruders, but as partners. Vera paused to adjust a floating display of luminous symbols. "Captain," she said softly, "it is remarkable how far you have come. You have proven that humans can contribute without disrupting tradition. That is rare in any world, not just Elisara. Humans may be different, but we can find common ground anywhere." This was the moment he had been preparing for, not only to honor the Queen's decree, but to demonstrate the culmination of human adaptability and respect. As they entered the hall, the grandeur of the palace overwhelmed him. Light shimmered across walls, reflecting in gentle waves, and the floating gardens created a cascading effect of color and movement. The entire court had gathered, their attention focused on the stage at the far end. Queen Lysera sat on her throne, her presence calm and commanding. She studied Aiden carefully, her eyes conveying both authority and acknowledgement. Beside her, Vera looked poised yet relaxed, her gaze meeting Aiden's with a quiet warmth that made the human captain feel a sense of shared purpose. The ceremony began with a series of symbolic gestures, each movement and placement of light carrying meaning. Aiden followed carefully, applying all he had learned. He noted the subtle cues of approval and disapproval, adjusting his actions to show respect while maintaining clarity. Every gesture, every step was a balance between human intent and Elisaran tradition. When it came time for the exchange of symbolic tokens, Aiden presented a creation of his own design, a small, glowing device that combined human engineering with Elisaran artistry. The device projected patterns of light that shifted dynamically, representing unity, trust, and cooperation. Vera received it with a smile, placing her hand atop his in mutual acknowledgement. The court murmured in admiration. Queen Lysera's voice echoed through the hall. "Captain Cole, you have demonstrated intelligence, patience, and creativity, You have honored our traditions while contributing something new. Today, this union is not merely an order, but a recognition of partnership and understanding. Your Majesty, I am grateful for the opportunity to learn and contribute. Humans have much to offer, and I hope this partnership will benefit both our peoples. Aiden participated with attention and care, using his observations to mirror gestures and rhythms. He was aware that every action, however small, symbolized respect and understanding. After the formalities, Vera led him to a balcony overlooking the central gardens. The view was breathtaking. Streams of glowing water curved gracefully among floating flora, and the palace lights reflected in a spectrum of colors that seemed almost alive. Aiden took a deep breath, feeling a sense of completion mixed with anticipation. "Captain," Vera said, her voice soft, "we have navigated challenges, learned from each other, and built trust. I admit I was uncertain at first, but you have proven that humans can offer wisdom, creativity, and perspective in ways we did not expect. Together, we create solutions neither species could achieve alone." Scholars, engineers, and artists approached him with questions and suggestions, eager to explore human methods integrated with Elisaran tradition. One scholar asked him to help design a mechanism for the palace gardens, a system that combined earth engineering with Elisaran bioluminescent plants. Aiden eagerly sketched ideas, explaining logic and potential outcomes. Vera watched, her expression a mix of admiration and pride. The queen observed quietly, noting each interaction. Aiden's ability to navigate these moments with clarity, respect, and creativity reinforced the original intention behind her decree. This union was not a mere formality. It was proof that humans could integrate seamlessly into Elisaran society and offer unique contributions without disruption. Later, as the hall emptied, Aiden and Vera walked through the floating gardens. The night sky above reflected the shimmering lights of the palace, and the gardens themselves seemed to pulse with gentle energy. They spoke quietly about future collaborations, projects, and ways to strengthen the bond between their peoples. "Captain," Vera said thoughtfully, "your presence here has changed how many of us see humans, not through force, not through dominance, but through thought, creativity, and respect. You have shown that partnership is possible when both sides contribute honestly. And when guided by respect and empathy, we can thrive anywhere, even in worlds that seem completely alien." He had started as a diplomat forced into an impossible command, yet through ingenuity, patience, and empathy, he had earned respect, forged bonds, and found genuine partnership. Vera turned to him with a soft smile. "Captain Cole, we have achieved much, but the real work begins now. Our peoples will look to us to continue building understanding, trust, and collaboration. Together, we can show that humans are capable of contributing meaningfully to a civilization far different from their own. We will learn from each other, support each other, and create a future that benefits both our worlds." In that moment, Captain Aiden Cole understood a fundamental truth about humanity. Strength did not lie in force or dominance, but in intelligence, creativity, empathy, and the courage to adapt without compromising one's values. The Queen's decree had seemed like a trap at first. There had been fear, uncertainty, and the looming weight of obligation. Yet it had become an opportunity, a chance to demonstrate that humans could shine in even the most alien circumstances, not through power, but through thought, understanding, and collaboration. As the night deepened, Aiden and Vera returned to the palace, walking side by side, their steps light with confidence. The court had witnessed a union that was more than ceremonial. It was symbolic of a future where humans and Elisarans could learn from each other, solve problems together, and build bridges that no decree or law could sever. In the days that followed, Captain Cole continued to work with Vera and the court, developing new systems for trade, cultural exchange, and collaborative projects. The palace gardens flourished under their joint efforts. Festivals were celebrated with renewed harmony, and scholars from both worlds began exploring innovations that blended human logic with Elisaran artistry. Everywhere he went, Aiden observed, adapted, and contributed. His actions demonstrated the very essence of HFY, humanity's ability to thrive, influence, and inspire not through aggression, but through creativity, intelligence, and empathy. Even as he navigated the complexities of court life, Aiden took time to reflect. He thought of Earth, his family, and the human species he represented. He realized that humans possessed a rare combination of curiosity, resilience, and ingenuity. It was this combination that had allowed him to succeed in a world so different from his own, to turn an imposed command into a true partnership, and to prove that humans could belong anywhere. Princess Vera, walking beside him, shared his thoughts without words. Her presence was no longer a symbol of obligation, but a reflection of mutual respect and shared purpose. Together, they were more than individuals. They were a bridge, a living testament to the potential of interstellar collaboration. Queen Lysera observed quietly, satisfied that her decree had achieved more than compliance. It had fostered understanding, cooperation, and innovation. A human had entered the palace, faced trials, navigated subtle challenges, and emerged not as an outsider, but as a valued partner. And as the stars above Elisara twinkled, mirrored by the palace lights below, Captain Aidan Cole understood the truth he had always intuited but never fully realized. Humanity could shine in even the most alien circumstances. Not through strength of arms, not through dominance or aggression, but through creativity, intelligence, empathy, and the courage to act with purpose and respect. The Union, once a command without choice, had become a celebration of what was possible when two worlds, so different in every way, chose to learn from and support each other. Aidan had not only fulfilled the Queen's order, but had transformed it into a story of collaboration, respect, and HFY triumph. As the first ceremonial lights of the evening faded into a peaceful night, he looked at Vera and smiled. The journey ahead would have new challenges, but he was ready. Together, humans and Elisarans would explore possibilities, solve problems, and continue building a future defined by understanding, creativity, and shared purpose. In the heart of Elisara, amidst glowing gardens, shimmering terraces, and the quiet hum of floating structures, Captain Aidan Cole had found not only acceptance but significance. Humanity had proven its worth, not through force or conquest, but through intelligence, empathy, and ingenuity. And that, he knew, was the essence of being human. For on this alien world, where there had once been fear and obligation, now there was trust, respect, and partnership. The Queen's decree had become a symbol of possibility, and the human spirit had shone brightly, leaving a lasting mark on Elisara and perhaps on the future of interstellar cooperation itself. And as the night sky reflected in the palace waters, Aidan felt a profound certainty. Humans were capable of thriving, inspiring, and bridging worlds wherever the stars might take them.